wait, not last class, but last day.
Last day. So after this one. So the research exposure credits, the deadline is now December 15th.
At least for research participation.
Right. So please do, right? And then there are some other options as well. Right? Taking some quiz, things like that, right? But there are a lot of students, so everything has been delayed. And then there is no quiz during Thanksgiving break. So if possible, find out available studies and sign up for it and get the credit. That, in my opinion, that's the easiest way. So throughout this class, we talked about lots of psychological studies, right? So you are the consumers of psychological study, right? But in participation or research exposure credit, it's just a rare opportunity for you to take part in actually producing psychological knowledge. Right? So hopefully that's a good experience and important and informative as well. So you can do to sign up for a study and get the credit. That's the easiest option, especially during this time. Right? A lot of students, they are taking quiz, so lots of delay. Oh, and then in exam 4, there will, like I said, there will be short answer questions, right? So you need the key terms for that. So I posted it to the e-learning website. If you go to if you go to the e-learning website, exposure site, this may be slightly different from your view because I'm here as an instructor as opposed to student, but you can find this key terms, right? Just click there, then you can get this. It will be, you can download the file, and there are 40 key terms. Then out of those 40 key terms, there will be 25 questions. Okay? The definition of these key terms can be found in the textbook, like this, right? So 40 key terms, 25 questions. So as usual, there will be 50 questions in exam 4. So 25 from this, but another 25 questions, they are multiple choice questions, right? Just like the questions as in the previous exams. And then all those 25 multiple choice questions will be slightly easier than the previous one, in my opinion. So if your scores are not good, still there is some hope, right? So don't give up. Just try.
So for the key terms, will you give us like the definition, and then we'll have to write the key term, what it is?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I will provide the definition, and then you write down.
Okay, good. I was about to say, I can do that, but I can't go the other way around.
Yeah, that's the way.
Right.
So you can get it from e-learning website. So question. So previous previously we talked about situational factors that can increase aggression, right? And then we also talked about the theory that can explain aggression. The first theory we talked about is frustration aggression theory. So why people engage in aggressive behavior? According to this theory, because we are frustrated. When are we frustrated? If our goal is blocked. Something you wanted to do, you cannot do, then you are frustrated, then aggression, right? So the intensity of frustration is associated with intensity of aggression. A lot of frustration, more aggressive. Then also the intensity of frustration depends on many factors, right? How important the goal is. More important goal, that goal is blocked, more aggression. And then how close you are to achieving the goal, right? So you are really, really close to achieving that goal, and that goal is blocked, more aggression, right? But this frustration, aggression theory is this very simple theory based on association. It's a simple association. Frustration leads to aggression, right? But it's too simple, so there are many exceptions. So sometimes aggression does not necessarily result from frustration. We talked about hot weather, right? On an extremely hot day, many people are a little bit more aggressive regardless of their goal. And then when we are frustrated, that doesn't necessarily mean that we will do aggressive behavior. Sometimes you are really, really, really frustrated, you end up doing nothing, right? So it is not the case. Frustration always lead to aggression. That's not the case. Sometimes frustration does not lead to aggressive behavior. So we need a new theory because this theory is not perfect, right? So that's neo-associationistic account. So frustration aggression theory is based on association. So it's associationistic account as well. Right? Association between frustration and aggression. But this neo-associationistic account, it is not just frustration. Any kind of aversive experience, pain, heat, it can be frustration, or it can be insert any kind of aversive stimuli would make us feel angry. That anger will result in aggressive behavior. So the difference is here, is this. Not just frustration, any kind of aversive stimuli will lead to aggression, right? Not just frustration, any kind of negative experience. And then there is another step in between. It is not direct association between negative experience and aggression. What is the second step? This anger, right? Negative experience, you will interpret that experience. As a result, you may feel anger, right? And then you are angry, then that will result in aggression. So here, compared to frustration aggression theory, it emphasizes interpretation. Right? Depending on our interpretation of negative experiences, we may feel anger or not. And then we feel anger, then aggressive behavior. Right? So for instance, if you can see hot day as a chance to relax in the sun, then no reason to be aggressive, right? But if you are stuck in traffic on the same day, you may be more aggressive, right? So it depends on your interpretation. So goal block, that's frustration. So not just frustration, any kind of aversive or negative experiences. And depending on your interpretation, you may feel angry. And then you are angry, then aggressive behavior. So it's slightly complex and frustration relationship, right? And then weapon and violence. A survey found that in the US, there were nearly 90 guns for every 100 citizens. So, a lot of guns. And then, did you hear that there is another gun incident at Florida State University the other day? Right? So, a gunman entered into the library and opened fire. So, 3 students were wounded. One of them is in serious condition. So, a lot of gun incidents, right? I mean, there may be some cultural values that is associated with gun, but one thing that I cannot get used to, among many other things, is gun in the US. I mean, I'm from Korea. Korea is kind of gun-free country, right? So I cannot understand this, but a lot of guns in the US. Obviously, it's not that simple, right? So some American values are associated with having gun, independence, autonomy, right? I can understand that. But at least, according to the research, weapon or just gun is closely associated with aggression. So here's just one example. So all participants are male students, right? And then they believe there are 2 participants in this experiment. But one is the real participant, the other was a Confederate. So all they have to do is working on some cognitive performance. One of them working on cognitive task, and the other evaluate his or his performance. Right? Then, if the evaluator thinks that's not adequate or that's not enough, then they can deliver electric shock. So one participant worked on some cognitive task. The other Confederate evaluate him, and then based on their evaluation, they can deliver the shock. Right? Oh, this is you should do better than this, right? The electric shock, right? And then they can take turns. So at one point, participants working on cognitive task, the other is the evaluator, but later they switch the role. Now, Confederate working on a cognitive task, participants evaluate their performance. Then there are 2 conditions. In one condition, Confederate delivered just one electric shock, so not severe. But in another condition, repeatedly Confederate delivered the electric shocks. Oh, you should have done better than this. Shock, another shock. So participants may feel angry, right? So anger condition, no anger condition. Just one electric shock as opposed to many. So, and then in the experiment room, in one condition, there are guns. So you can see guns. You are exposed to the guns. Participants are exposed to the gun. In another condition, not the guns, but they are exposed to badminton rackets. Right? In another condition, no object whatsoever. What they found is this. So when they are angry, they delivered more shock to the Confederate when they switch the role, right? So they retaliate when they are angry, right? Compared to they are not angry, right? Same thing for badminton racket, except that in no anger condition, they never delivered any kind of shock, right? but they are exposed to the gun, the amount of retaliation increase, right? Somehow, just being exposed to the gun make them more aggressive, right? Gun, aggression. There are some associations between them, right? Right? So if you're exposed to the guns, then aggressive thoughts come to your mind. So then you can be more aggressive. Right? Do you remember this experiment? Being exposed to old related words, like why, wrinkle, Florida, all those, after exposed to that kind of words, people tend to walk slowly, right? Why? Being old and working slowly, there is some association, right? So being exposed to being old, and then they end up walking slowly, right? Same thing here. There is some association between guns and aggression. So just exposure to the gun can make people a little bit more aggressive, right? And there are a lot of debates over gun control, right? So I understand that there is another side of the story as well, but according to this research, maybe it's more safe. It's safer if gun is not available at all. I mean, some people are really aggressive. When aggressive people has a gun, think about the damage, right? In Korea, there are aggressive people as well, but all they can use is knife, right? So think about the damage, right? Still a lot of damage, but compared to the gun. But I guess you need to protect yourself, right?
I think the reason why there's so much aggression in the U.S. because the country founded on aggression. Basically, whenever they broke apart in the United Kingdom, right, from like Great Britain and everything. So it's like, oh hey, aggression, they're rewarded. That's why the U.S. is more.
Independence. So the gun has some cultural values, right? That cultural value, probably that's important. Autonomy, independence, self-defense, and then you have to protect yourself because other people can have guns. Bad people have access to guns, right? So good people need to have access to guns as well, right? But if gun is really completely controlled, so gun is not available, except for police officers and soldiers, then it may be a little bit safer than everyone can have guns. But you may have different opinions, especially gun has specific cultural values and beliefs. Well, so this is really simple situational cues, right? Not using guns, just being exposed to the guns, right? Watching guns might make people a little more aggressive. And then another simple situation cue is color. Well, one example is like the effect of uniform color. There are a lot of pro sports, right? And in some pro sports, physical contact is allowed. Right? Think about football and hockey, right? Ice hockey, right? A lot of physical contact. That's allowed, right? And then specific color of the uniform. If specific color is associated with more aggression, what color will be more aggressive? Right? Red, green. Green is usually peace.
Yeah.
Peace. Red is one candidate. Black, right? So red is slightly more aggressive, but black is associated with more aggression in general. Right? So pro sports team with black uniforms they commit more, they are receiving more penalties related to physical contact. So one research followed 1970 through 1984, black uniformed NFL teams and black uniformed NHL teams, and they compared the number of penalties they are getting with other teams in the same league, right? So you can see this as a league average. So anything above that, that's more penalties. So black uniform teams getting more penalties. Below, black uniform teams getting less penalties compared to other teams in the same league. Except 1 year, here 76 in NHL, and then 79 in NFL, black uniform team, they received more penalties. So they were more physical than the other teams. So one interpretation of this is this: wearing black uniform, maybe it may make people more aggressive. Being in black clothes, it may be associated with aggressive behaviors, right? Dark, right? So because of that association, if black is activated, you may be a little bit more aggressive, right? So really simple cues like this, the color of clothes, may be associated with aggression as well. But this does not mean that anyone with black clothes are aggressive, right? That's not the case, right? There's a small increase. And there are so many other pictures as well. And then basically this is a correlation study, right? So you did not assign same player to black uniform team or other uniform team, right? It's just correlation. So more aggressive people may choose black uniform team, right? That's also possible. So it's a correlation study. But at least there seems to be some association between wearing black clothes and aggressive physical aggression. So we talked about small little situational cues, right? Guns or clothes, right? But we do have big situational factors like culture, right? So we talked about culture of honor, right? This kind of culture is characterized by these two things, right? First, there is a concern for reputation and honor, right? That in order to protect their reputation, people are willing to use physical violence, right? So they wanted to protect their honor or reputation, even using an aggressive method, right? That's kind of accepted in culture of honor, right? So why a certain culture developed this kind of cultural values? Do you remember?
Something about the hunter-gatherer.
Because they have to constantly protect their livestock and their
That's
communities.
Right. So, in a certain culture, legal authority is not enough, right? Think about herding culture, right? So you have to go to the remote place, right, with your cows and pigs, whatever your property is, right? So it's a remote place, right? So legal authority is not there, and then your property is movable, right? So other people can easily steal one of them, right? It's movable. Think about farmers, right? That's there, it's not movable. Their property is there, right? And then they have to wait. But the herding culture, every property is movable, then legal authority is not there. So many people, sometimes they want to steal this, some of the properties, right? So in this kind of situation, reputation as a tough guy is really beneficial, right? So potential stealers may think that, oh, this guy is really tough guy, right? This person is really tough. Then they do not want to mess with him or her, right? In contrast, another person is just peaceful. Even when somebody steals their property, they just, okay, it can happen. They move on, right? If that's the case, all the bad guys will go after that person, a peaceful person, right? So in this kind of environment, reputation as a tough guy is really beneficial. So they develop this culture of honor, protecting honor or reputation, even using an aggressive method. And then that kind of culture can be found in the US South. Herding culture, not enough legal authorities, so they wanted to protect themselves, right? So many research shows that white males from the South show more facial expressions of anger, more testosterone, hormone that is associated with more aggression. Form of grief, greater hostility after an insult. They are not just more aggressive across board. They are more aggressive after an insult. When their honor or when their reputation is at stake, they can be more aggressive. So that's related to herding culture, like I said, and this is basically finding, right? Family-related murders, no differences. There is small difference in here, but that's not significant difference. Here, argument-related murders, a lot higher in the US South compared to US North. So when the reputation is at stake, they can be more aggressive, right? And then the other side of the coin may be sudden hospitality, right? So if I insert this person may get back to me with a lot of aggression, right? So if you understand that, then probably you will be nicer, kinder, right? Because whenever I insert this person, reaction may be aggressive, right? If you have that assumption, then normally you will be kinder, nicer, right? So that maybe the other side of the coin is sudden hospitality. Then we talked about this one interesting study, right? So, but I will skip this because we already talked about this in chapter 2, I think. So, yeah. Well, so they have to fill out the questionnaire, and after that they have to put the questionnaire on the desk, which is located at the end of narrow hallway. So they have to walk to the desk and have to return, right? But in between, some person is working on fire drill, right? So, like I said, it's really narrow hallway, so he kind of blocked participants' way to the desk. So in order for participants to go there, they have to step aside, right? Stop working and step aside. And the participant put the questionnaire there, and then on their way to the lab, this person has to do the exact same thing one more time, right? So this person is really annoyed and slam the door and say, asshole, right? And then he laughs. It's kind of insert, right? Other people are watching, right? So then measure is how aggressive they are. Like after this incident. Findings that students from southern states are more aggressive. If there was an insert like this. If there was no insert whatsoever, they are nicer. Right? So basically that's culture of honor. A certain culture is related to more violence. The evolution is also related to aggression as well. According to the evolutionary perspective, there are ultimate goal of whatever we are doing, any kind of behavior. Why? What's the cause? Reproduction and survival, right? Reproduction of our genes, right? Saying aggression may be related to that as well. So one example is this. This is not a good example, but usually children are more likely to be killed by step-parents than biological parents. In Canada, 17 times more likely. In America, 100 times more likely. Children were killed by step-parents than by biological parents. There are so many other explanations, but one explanation is this. Step-families have some evolutionary conflict, right? There are only limited resources. That resources can be used for your biological children or for the stepchildren, right? Limited resources, biological related. That kid has my gene. This kid might not have my gene, so more aggression. But in general, children are not killed by their parents that often, right? So it's really minimal effect. But there is some difference between step family and biological family. More aggression among step families than biological families. Evolutionary account can explain that. But that's just one way of explaining it. There are so many other explanations. Another thing, so when it comes to evolution and aggression, there is this interesting gender difference. Right? The difference being this. Violence or aggression against unfaithful parents. Unfaithful female and unfaithful male. Who is more, what's the correct word? Who is more likely to be punished?
Oh,
The woman.
yeah.
Right? There are so many other explanations, but one explanation based on evolutionary perspective is this. Mother is certain, this is my baby, right? That kid has my genes, right? 100% certain, right? Because they gave a birth to baby, right? But from father's perspective, there is no guarantee, right? You have to trust, right? So if mothers are unfaithful, then less trust, right? It's really threat. They are not sure whether this is my gene or not, right? If you follow the logic of evolutionary perspective, right? Mother always certain, father is not certain, so unfaithful parents or unfaithful partner is more threat to males than to females, right? So more aggression or more punishment for unfaithful female than unfaithful male. But like I said, that's just one explanation. Other explanations are possible, right? Gender inequality, social status. But when it comes to evolutionary approach, that's one part. Okay, so now let's just talk about gender differences in aggression. Is there any gender difference in terms of aggression? What is that?
Males are more aggressive.
Males are more aggressive.
Because of all the
across
sports. Yeah, like all the sports they play,
And also more physically aggressive, while girls are more psychologically aggressive.
Yeah. Is that true? So we define aggression as any behavior with psychological or physical harm, right? So psychological harm is also considered as aggression. So if you take that into account, maybe no gender difference. But
The way in which we out our aggression, maybe the way in which we employ aggression.
right, the way that, so men and women, they are all aggressive, or let me put it this way. They have potential to be aggressive, but in different ways, right? So males, physical violence. But females, relational aggression, or psychologically more aggressive. Right? So the way they express their aggression may be different depending on their gender. Right? So more physical violence, large gender differences in violent crime rates. Most of them are male. That may be related to hormone levels, like testosterone is a really key player in aggressive behavior. And the male has a lot of testosterone compared to women, right? So that may be the reason. But this gender difference may be related to social experiences as well, right? So they are true. So male kids or boys, they are allowed to be physically aggressive, right? Oh, that's just boys, right? Boys can be wrong, right? But girls, if they engage in that kind of behavior, their parents immediately stop it. For some parents, right? So they are not allowed to be physically aggressive. If that's the way they are raised, then it is no surprise at all that males are more physically aggressive than females, right?
How are I'm sorry.
That's correct.
How are males more likely to be victims of violence? I don't
Because
understand that.
male, so in order to fight, you need another person, right?
Oh.
So one is really aggressive, the other is really peaceful, and no fight at all.
So like competition?
Right, right. No. Male is aggressive, right? And another male is really aggressive. They met each other, then violent crime. Right? But females are less physically aggressive. So male is really, really aggressive. Female is not. If they meet, then not as bad as violent crime.
Okay.
Something, but so usually fight is between males, not between male and females, right? Because one is slightly more peaceful, the other is really aggressive. So a lot of fight between males, but not between males and females.
What about between the two females? I know it says that they're more, what is it, relational aggression. I've seen, maybe it's where I went to school, but I saw a lot more female, like, fist fights and going down, like, a lot more than I saw males.
So yeah, the gender differs tend to decrease, right? As time goes on, right? Why? Maybe the way we raise our children is changing, right? Right?
Yeah.
So many parents gender neutral. So if this is a real reason, then even physical violence between females as well, right? But relatively, at this point, more physical violence between males than between females. That does not mean that there is no physical violence between females, right? Just relatively slightly less. But that tendency, the gender difference, tend to decrease. possibly because of this social learning. So gender difference can be biological, but can be based on social experience as well. And then conflict in peace. So in chapter 13,
This is chapter.
yeah, chapter 13, we are talking about aggression, right? So, and then chapter 14, we are talking about collaboration, empathy, like better side of human being, right? So in that chapter, we focus on how we can resolve conflict, right? But in chapter 13, we focus on why it is really difficult to resolve conflict. Why it is so difficult to achieve peace. One reason is this dehumanization. Human beings, or we, as a human being, we have amazing ability. Right? Sometimes we can identify other people. Sometimes we can identify us with other people, right? Perfect identification. If someone suffers, you can feel that pain as if that's yours, right? So that's perfect identification, right? That's amazing ability we have. But the other side of the token is this. We can do perfect disidentification, right? We can just completely ignore other people as well, right? If your loved one suffered, heartbroken, really painful, but think about people who are dying of Ebola in South Africa, right? Well, you may be sad, but you may not be that sad, right? It is not your thing, right? So we can do that, right? So for certain death, you may feel that as your own experience, that's perfect identification. But at the other extreme, we can perfectly disidentify ourselves with others, right? That's dehumanization. So sometimes we treat other people as something like rats and dogs, not human beings, right? So that we can be very cruel. It's really, really difficult to kill other human beings, right? Oh, he's just like me, and it is really like to kill them, right? But if you somehow think that, oh, maybe they are just enemies, right? They are not human beings. They are just rats and dogs, pigs. And it's slightly easy to do that, right? So dehumanization. That's one reason why it is really difficult to resolve conflict. Another reason is this reactive evaluation. So we do have tendency to attach less value to an offer in a negotiation once the opposing group makes it. So whatever opinion they have, that's less valuable. It does not depend on the quality of argument or the quality of offers. No matter what kind of offer you receive, and if it is from the other side, you conclude that, oh, that's not valuable, that's not a good idea, right? I mean, there are a lot of real life examples, right? Democrats and Republicans, sometimes their plan is only minimally different, right? But one said, oh, the other, that's not a good idea, that's completely wrong, right? Even though the argument itself is pretty same. So one example is this. In 1980s, there is a conflict between students and university. over many different things, including tuition increase, so some conflict between student bodies and university. And the study is done in Stanford University. So in 1980s, in South Africa, there is this legal segregation between white and black. What's apartheid? Right? That system, right? Segregation between whites and black. And then prejudice toward black people are legal in that period, right? In South Africa, right? And then Stanford invested some of their money to South Africa, right? And students are really not happy about that. South Africa, they are really prejudiced, so we shouldn't invest our money to them, right? So there are two alternative positions. So South Africa, at that point, is not a good country, so we have to divest our money from South Africa. One plan is partial divestment, right? So step-by-step divestment, right? Maybe next year, 10%. Year after that, 30, 50, eventually 100%. Another plan, alternative plan, is just immediate 100% investment, right? At this moment, we just divest all the money we invested, right? So two different plans, right? Initially, students think this partial divestment is better than 100% investment, right? But university adopt this as opposed to this. They adopted the partial investment as opposed to 100% investment. And then students suddenly believe that, oh, that's not better than 100% investment. Same plan, if university adopt that plan, then somehow they think that's not so much, not as valuable as before. Why? Like I said, there is a conflict between students and university, right? So opposing part adopted the plan, so that shouldn't be good. That shouldn't be a good plan. So any plan adopted by the opposing party is believed to be bad. At least is believed to be not good. This is just one example, but a lot of real life examples. Right? So that's reactive evaluation. Remember this thing. This is one of those key terms you have. Then there is a reason for me to emphasize this, right? Reactive evaluation. Not only we hate any kind of argument proposed by the other party, we are using simplistic reasoning and rhetoric. So if one of your in-group members did something bad, so hit some person, then your explanation is really, really long. He may have certain situation, he has some excuses, so a lot of explanation. But someone from out group did the same behavior, your explanation is really simple. He's aggressive, or she's aggressive, right? No reason to explain, no reason to come up with excuses, right? So we tend to use simplistic reasoning to understand others' behavior, especially your behavior. Then if we're using those simplistic reasoning, then things are getting worse. Right? So historically, there are a lot of conflicts between nations, right? Some conflict before World War I, a lot of conflict before the Cuban Missile Crisis, and they analyzed complexity of speech given by leaders in either country, right? So here, it is not that complex. Complexity is really low. Pretty much what they are saying is the other side is evil. They are really bad, and we are good. Very simplistic reasoning. What happened? There was a war, right? But during the Cuban Missile Crisis, complexity increased during the climax of the crisis, right? So leaders describe the other side using more complicated words. There may be some excuses here and there. We have to consider their situation, a lot of complex reasoning. You know what happened? There was no war over Cuban Missile Crisis. That crisis peacefully resolved. Possible reason is this. They describe the other side in a more complicated way, as opposed to this. The other side is evil, they are bad, and we are good. Very simplistic reason, result, war. Right? So in order to resolve the conflict, you have to use complicated reasoning. You have to describe others' behavior in a complex way. It's a lot better. And then at some point, if the other part using all those simplistic reasoning, you're bad, you're evil, then at one point they stop talking to each other, then make it worse, right? So keep communicating is really important to resolve any kind of conflict. But when you do that, you need to use more complicated reasoning. So that's the way to decrease international conflict or interpersonal conflict as well. And that's it in chapter 13. So since this is the, at least for some of you, this is the last class before the break. That's it, so you can leave on.